All right, welcome in. Hello, hello. Another edition of the Green Teamers, second Green Teamers of the year. It is James Scaramozzino. Alongside me is Jake Seymour. Jake, the Celtics are 0-3. The sky is falling. Fire Joe Mazzulla chants have started, especially in the YouTube chats. I'm sure. Another ugly one today against the Detroit Pistons. You know, an up and coming team in the East. This isn't the Pistons of a few years ago. This is a legit team, an actual good team. But the Celtics, again, fall early lead, kind of collapse late. We'll start with today's game and kind of work our way backwards. 0-3. We're going to keep it, big picture. It's only been 3 games. Let's not totally hit the panic button yet, but there's a real chance the Celtics are not as good as a lot of us thought they were, and there's a good chance they might just not be good.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to open the show, guys. I mean, but it's the truth. This team, I think, is falling short of expectations through the first 3 games. Friday night was, frankly, embarrassing, I think, for the team, and you can't lose your opening night like that. They were up by, I think it was 109, 100, a few minutes to go in the game, and they lose that. And then today, they just got bullied almost, it felt like, in a lot of ways. The rebounding was off the charts, and a lot of that, of course, is chopped up to their missed shots. They were I think they missed, we said pre-show, 54 shots in the contest, 40 of 94, I think, in the game. And I think when we talked about this team a week ago and we were going over the expectations, we were a lot more maybe optimistic is a good way to put it. We didn't think that neither one of us thought they were going to be title contenders.
No,
Obviously, I don't think a lot of people
no.
did, but we thought they were hover around their 41 and a half over under that Vegas has set for them, be competitive and make a right around the play-in line in the NBA playoffs. And right now, when you watch this team, it feels like they're so far and away from getting to that spot. And I understand it's early, and I'm not trying to be extremely reactive to that because it's only 3 games, but there's a lot of things they need to fix and improve on to get to the point where they're battling for a play-in tournament spot.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good place to start. Is things, they can improve on areas, they can get better. Like, what is going wrong? And I'll start. I think a lot of it has to do with the roster. We knew the roster was. I don't want to say they're completely devoid of talent because they have Jalen Brown, they have Derek White, they have Peyton Pritchard, but they're not a deep team at all. They're very limited, and you saw it tonight. Jalen Brown has what, 41, 6 and 5, something like that, and it's not enough. And unfortunately for Jalen, he's going to have a lot of nights like that where he'll score 35, 40 points, and it might not be enough. And Peyton Pritchard was okay tonight. We can get into him in that first game, his shot selection at the end of that one, I'm sure, at some point. But it's a frustrating roster to watch. Second chance points, fast break points. Like, we heard pace all off season, all preseason heading into the season, and they're getting run out of some of these games. Like, if you can't rebound and you can't get out on the fast break, like, you're pretty much screwed in today's NBA. Like, it's that simple. They don't have enough guys that are elite shot makers. They don't have enough guys that get open to make shots. Like, Sam Hauser's a fine bit piece, fine rotation player, but they're relying on him too much. I don't know what stood out for you today with this loss in particular.
I think in this loss in particular, it just started the free throws. I mean, you let Detroit shoot free throws 36 times, or 32 or 36 from the charity stripe. You just can't commit. Like, I don't care if you thought the refs were calling too many ticky tack fouls. You're not going to win many games if you allow a team to shoot 36 free throws. It's not going to happen, especially in the NBA. And now the Celtics responded. Their free throws started to increase. They were 18 to 24 on the game when the final buzzer sounded. But there were a lot of times in this game when the Pistons were well into the 20s for free throws attempted, and the Celtics weren't even in double digits yet. And those are the opportunities that you need to take advantage of when you're a Celtics team that's trying to find its identity, trying to find which players are going to be your scorers for the season, because those are the chances that'll allow you to get into rhythms, allow you to get into grooves. And when you're struggling to do that, and then the Pistons are on a 22-6 run, or the run is continuing to balloon up, those are the ones that kind of stop the bleeding and make it a little bit easier for you to, halt that and to come back a little bit more in the game. And to me, that really stood out. And of course, rebounding. Now, I don't understand when I look at this team. I'm not saying that Xavier Tillman is a fantastic rebounder, but in this game in particular, Tillman did not play against the Pistons. And when you're being out rebounded, how you were out rebounded, and being second chance points left and right, I would have liked to have seen Tillman just to see if what happens. I would have liked to see some more double big lineups. We did see it earlier in the second quarter. Missoula went to Keda and I believe Boucher. They were on the floor together for a little bit. But I just look at this team scout and I say they're too small. They lack the size. And I don't know if that's because we were so used to seeing them be almost too big in some ways, which is never a problem to have in basketball. But when you had Porzingis and Horford and Tatum, those were big lineups. And you had Jaylen Brown out there as well. But now when we look at this team, and it's really, you get Pritchard at the 1, White's in there, Brown's starting in the 3, and you really only have one big man in your starting lineup in Keda, like, that's going to be difficult for you to work through and to out-rebound teams and play better in the paint. It's just not going to happen for you.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think going into the season, that was a massive worry, was rebounding and just their overall size. And it's not like they have athletic bigs either. Like, Chris Boucher's a nice player, a nice off-the-bench player, but he's not an athletic big. You know, he's kind of a stretch big. He'll shoot, he'll get a couple rebounds, but no, he's not racking up like Jalen Duren today, 17 rebounds or whatever it was. You know, in Detroit's full of athletes. The Tillman thing, I'm with you. I think that's a fair criticism of Missoula to sit Tillman today. And I was talking to a buddy, and we were texting about this during the game too, that on Friday he didn't play Josh Minott. So is this a rotation thing where he's trying to get guys different minutes and Minott sits against the Knicks, which doesn't make sense to me either. You talk about a matchup with an athletic team with some longer wings, like Minott, we haven't seen a ton of him, but he's young, he's athletic, he can jump out of the gym, like he could give you something. So yeah, the two guys being DNPs and Minott, and then Tillman, I don't 100% get. I hope someone asks him about it in post game. I haven't seen anything on Twitter yet, but that's definitely something I'd be interested in. Yeah, rebounding is a massive, massive issue for this team, and I don't know how you really fix that when the height on your roster isn't there, when the athleticism on your roster isn't there. Jason Tatum was their best rebounder. He was their best passer. He was their best scorer, best defender. So, like, you're really seeing how much Jason Tatum did on a nightly basis. Like, it's we all knew it too. I'm not saying it as if it's surprising me or anything like that, but maybe to the level that it is this early on, I thought they would be a little bit more equipped with a full off season to kind of adapt to life without Tatum. But you're almost seeing a team that looks like they lost a guy, you know, halfway through the season and they're having to adjust to it. Like, I understand they relied on Tatum for the last, 4 or 5 years to be the focal point of literally everything they did and to be, the main emphasis on defense for other teams and how they game planned against the Celtics. But you figured going into the season they would have some adaptability to knowing they were going to be without him for deep into the season and potentially all of the season. So I think that's another criticism you could have of Missoula. And I'm not, sitting here saying we need to pile on Missoula. I think a lot of their problems are because of the roster. But when it comes to, getting leads, they were up early in this game. They were playing okay. Derek White's hitting some shots. Kata was looking all right early. They've been trying to get the pick and pop going with Luka Garza. I don't know if I love that, but it's something they're working on. So I give them credit in instances like that, but 0-3, some uninspiring play down the stretch of these games, which has been a trend, not in their title winning year, but in recent years, they've had some struggles in the fourth quarter. And so, yeah, I think that is a big question is how do you fix these issues if a lot of them are on your roster? And that's a tall task for Brad and for Joe. And that's why I say that, we need to learn a lot about Joe this year. Would you put Simons in the starting lineup? Would you go to a double big more often? Like where do you go from here?
For me, I want to see the double big lineup more, especially when you're playing these taller teams. I mean, the New York Knicks completely, like, Karl-Anthony Towns was doing what he wanted to do in the paint. And we saw it again a little bit today with the length and Detroit's a very big team. They got length to them, and we saw Detroit just have their way in the paint. I mean, you look at the paint points tonight with the Celtics, they were outscored 50-40. Offensive rebounds were a problem in second chance points, 30-19. And I think when you look at this, what's the simplest way to at least attempt to try and stop the bleeding with this cause? It's you're going to want to get more big men in your lineup and try to impact and change the way that these teams are playing against you. Because frankly, right now, what's happening isn't sustainable for the rest of the season. It isn't sustainable for a postseason berth, not even a birth period. So for me, I want to see more big men put into this lineup. I thought that the Celtics did a poor job in the offseason, given everything they were working through to change and adapt to their big man issues. They only really added a couple pieces there. I would have liked to have seen more, and we're starting to see those cracks fall through the lineup right now.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and I'm just peeking over at the chat here, and I'm seeing tank, lose. I
It's
can't
too
wait
early
for that top 5 pick, and I totally get that mindset. I think a lot of people had that going into the year without Tatum, but there was another part of the fan base, and I'd put myself in that part where I thought 40 to 45 wins wasn't out of the question. That 8-9 seed in the East isn't out of the question because the Eastern Conference is not great. You have teams on the rise like Detroit and Atlanta, and Giannis has been unbelievable to start this season. You're gonna have the Knicks and Orlando and Cleveland obviously at the top, but other than that, there is kind of a mishmash of teams with lesser talent in the East, and I think a lot of Celtics fans said, "Well, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, some of these guys we brought in should be able to compete." So far, not so good. The full court press thing too. I'm kind of totally out on that. I know that they preached it in the offseason. They showed it to us in the preseason a little bit, but you can't full court press for 82 games in the NBA. You just can't do it. Everyone is too athletic. They're too good at breaking presses. They've been doing it since middle school. At this point, that's another just small nitpick I have, that I don't love their style of defense right now. But like you said, it comes back to rebounding. They're just not a very talented, well put together team right now. And I think it is going to be kind of a long season. They go to New Orleans tomorrow night, back to back. You're going to see Tillman in that game. I wonder if there is another odd man out. That's something I'm going to be watching. But this is kind of where we're at with this Celtics team right now. It's frustrating. You feel for Jaylen Brown, but he knew what he was getting into. He certainly talked a lot this offseason, and I don't fault him for that. But I think this is kind of a wake-up call for hopefully them in that locker room, but also for Celtics fans, that this could be a long year. And if it continues this way, I don't want to see Jason Tatum this year. And I know we're going way down the road now, but that's where they have me at, Jake, is if you're 0-3 and this is how the team looks, keep Jason Tatum off the court.
No, it's a fair thing to think about right now. I know the Celtics don't want to talk about Tatum and when he could potentially return and his injury. Like, they don't really want to touch on that. But this is what you're working toward. You're working toward your franchise superstar player returning to your lineup. And this is the way you're going to introduce them with this group of players who seemingly are struggling to coexist with one another. It's one thing when Tatum comes back. You're not going to drop Tatum in this lineup and everything's going to fix itself. Everything we're talking about here. Tatum can only do so much. He's only one player. And in a league full of superstars, you do need some players around you to help the cause and to at least play coherent basketball. What they're doing right now isn't coherent. It seems like it has so much question marks around it. Like, I was even confused in Friday night when I was watching the game. It made no sense when they were the offense was. It seemed like in the first quarter they're able to get out to and push the tempo and do what they want to do. And you're like, okay, maybe there's some things with this offense that looks great. And then I remember Friday night in the second quarter and third quarter, everything fell apart. They lost their way when it came to what they wanted to do. And I know in the fourth quarter was maybe a little bit better, but the middle two quarters, they completely fell apart and the Knicks started running away with that game. And then you look up at the score and you're like, man, they're down by 20 points again? And I think when you see that, it can be so demoralizing knowing that these first three games they've started out well and it's completely fallen apart. And now in two of these three games, they've almost came back in the fourth quarter. In fact, in the opening night, they led for the fourth quarter and gave up a 9-point lead with 2 minutes to go. That's extremely demoralizing. And right now it's a snowball effect. They're 0-3 for the first time since Brad Stevens' first season in 2013-14. If that doesn't show how bad of a start this season is, I'm not sure what does for Celtics fans.
Yeah, it's a great point. And opening night against Philly was, VJ Edgecombe goes off, rookie, scoring.
He was phenomenal. You couldn't tell that guy was a rookie. He was spectacular.
Unbelievable. I heard, he was being compared to Dwayne Wade post game. Like, that's how good he was. He broke LeBron's first quarter scoring record for a rookie. I think he set the 76ers scoring record.
Yeah, he broke Allen Iverson's scoring record as a rookie, and he scored the most points in a debut. But he scored the most points in a debut by an NBA player since Wilt Chamberlain in 1959.
Yeah,
that is absurd company to be a part of.
That's unbelievable for him. It's a bad look for the Celtics. It is. Like, you still have Jaylen Brown and Derek White on your roster. They're defensive guards. VJ Edgecombe, yeah, he's a big shooting guard, but he's not, Azur Thompson, a guy you played today who's 6'7", playing the two guard who out rebounded everybody on your roster. But that would be my number one thing for this team is an athletic big. They just don't have one. And that's something they especially need when Jason Tatum is back, because you look at what Tatum's done with guys like Rob Williams and, Luke Cornett and Al Horford, guys who can get out on the floor, run with them, set them up, down below and vice versa. Like, Tatum thrives with them. That was a big part of their offense, and I think they're sorely missing one right now. They just don't have a big man on this roster with any real athleticism to be a game changer. You certainly saw that in the Knicks game. Just like you said earlier, Karl Anthony Towns doing whatever he wanted. But we've been pretty negative to start this podcast. So when you mention that Knicks game, and then I think about the starting lineup tonight, I do think one positive so far this season has been Ugo Gonzalez. The draft pick. He's 19 years old. And, I'm on Celtics Twitter. I see what's going on. I'm not calling him Manu Ginobili as some people are, but he's been great. He's been a spark. He was the only reason that Knicks game didn't turn into a 40-point blowout. He seems like he has the motor, at least for the NBA, which, he's young and he's not going to be refined yet. He's not going to, be an elite scorer or anything like that. But defensively, his motor is there. He tries to make the right plays at the right time. His reads seem to be, making the right decisions. Defensively, he's, an all-effort guy, and you hope the rest of it will come. And at 19, I would say of the Celtics season so far, he might be my biggest bright spot because there haven't been many of them. But I was really impressed with him. And I want to credit Missoula for starting him today because I think he was trying to give them a spark. Like you said, the snowball effect has already kind of taken place. And I think he was saying, hey, let's throw this kid out there. Sometimes I can give the team a little juice, give him a little juice. He's running out there with his hair on fire. And Derek White and him both had, steals early on. I think one led to a dunk, and the other one I might have been a Hauser three. I'm not sure, but he's been certainly a bright spot. If he turns into, anything at all, drafting, in the late first round of the NBA is a, total crapshoot after the first 10 picks, really, even, lower than that sometimes. So I think for me, he's the one bright spot so far. What have you thought of the rookie to this point?
Yeah, definitely the bright spot for the Celtics so far. I liked him early in this game. He had the 2 steals and was kind of always in the mixture of something. Like defensively, he was helping a lot, I thought, and he was always around the paint, getting loose balls, forcing loose balls, drawing fouls. Like there was one play early where he took a hard hit on a pick and got the offensive foul. That's great. This is the things that you want out of Hugo Gonzalez, especially for the Celtics who are going to be building toward the championship and the contenders in the next 2 or 3 seasons. You need to hit on these draft picks. So, yeah, he looks promising right now through 2 games. He had 6 points Friday night against the Knicks. He didn't score anything tonight against the Pistons. He was 0 for 2 from the field. But, yeah, he looks good. He looks promising. But I know you're trying to do a positive thing here, Scaz. I'm not trying to dump on that. But
No, please.
At the same time,
Please.
like, he can only do so much. This isn't going to fix all the issues. Is he a nice piece right now, and does he look promising through his first 2 NBA games? Yeah, sure. And did he start tonight? And do I want to see him start more? Yeah, I would like to see Hugo Gonzalez start in more games and see if he can create more of an impact and more reps he gets. He only played 18 minutes tonight. I'd like to see that go up and see how he does if he hits 20, 23 minutes a night. But he's just one player, and he doesn't address what the Celtics are lacking inside the paint, rebounding. Was he promising? Yeah, he looks good. But this isn't going to fix the trajectory of the team unless if he completely goes berserk and is, can be one of the leading scorers of this team, which I don't think is going to happen this season.
Yeah, Jake, I see that negative point, and I'll raise you one, okay? Hugo Gonzalez starting and being this much of a focal point for the Celtics this early on is a very bad look for, I think, a bad look is strong, but I think it's an indictment on their talent evaluating the past couple seasons because Jordan Walsh, Baylor Shireman, they've had other guys too that can't jump to mind right now. J.D. Davison, I guess, if you want to lump him in there too. But going into this offseason, I think everyone would have imagined that Jordan Walsh and Baylor Shireman would be higher on the depth chart than certainly Hugo Gonzalez. And it seems like not only has Josh Minott passed Shireman and Walsh on the depth chart, but this 19-year-old, rookie who's playing, for Real Madrid, which is a professional league, nothing to sniff at, but he was barely playing over there because there were NBA veterans on his team. They've already passed your last 2 draft picks, guys that Joe Murray may have just, green teamered me into thinking that Baylor Shireman was going to be a legit NBA player. But in the offseason, I thought, okay, Baylor Shireman's going to have another year under his belt. He showed us, some glimpses last year. He wasn't all rookie or anything like that, but he seemed like a solid, big that could space the floor, shoot, maybe play a little defense. Athleticism wasn't great, but that's a bad look for the roster, and that's one of the other holes we're seeing is that now you're throwing a 19-year-old kid out there to the fire because Jordan Walsh isn't ready still. His offensive game is still so poor, and his defense isn't, that valuable to this point. And then Baylor Shireman, I don't really know what the story is, but it seemed like he fell out of favor very quickly in the preseason with Minot playing over him. So that's another issue for this team. Their depth is really, really lacking. And I don't know, do they have to go out and make moves? Are they okay with being this bad? Like, I'm very interested in that because I thought some of the Tatum messaging in the offseason and heading into the season was like, just wait. Jason Tatum's coming back. Like we're going to be all right. Just hold, we'll win enough games to make it interesting until Tatum comes back, and that's going to be like the rallying cry. But if you can't float anywhere near 500, then I think you just kind of sold us a bad bill of goods there. Like, it's not going to work. Like, even with, you mentioned earlier, even with Tatum coming back, this roster is nowhere close. And we talk big picture. That's a wake-up call. I haven't really had that full realization just how poor this roster is, even with Jason Tatum, because I think as a Celtics fan, I've tried to be just, well, when Jason Tatum comes back, he's top 5 player in the league, it's most points, rebounds, assists in the finals, like all that stuff. No, this is not a championship level roster, even a conference finals roster. I'm not sure with Jason Tatum coming back. Like, that's how poor it's been through these games. And someone like Hugo Gonzalez stepping up, great in theory, great, when it's happening, but in reality, in practice, the reason it's happening is because their roster is so poor. And that's just another reason to be kind of weary of this Celtics team, and not just this Celtics team, but next year's Celtics team. This is, and now I'm getting way ahead of myself because you got me spiraling. But
you got your nerves over this, guys.
Yeah, literally though, I'm panicking here because
it's not a good day to be a green teamer.
It's not. No, this might be the most negative green teamers ever. We were all fired up last year. Thought we were taking down the Knicks. That was a tough one, but yeah, so my question is, does the seat ever get hot for Joe Mazzulla? I think, personally, I would say I would lean heavily no. I think the Joe Mazzulla stuff is mostly, just in the media. I think people in that building absolutely love him, but we have said all off season, the people you're going to learn the most about this season are Jaylen Brown, Derek White, and Joe Mazzulla. And I would say Jaylen Brown has mostly passed the test so far. I think he still made his Jaylen Brown turnovers and bad mistakes at times, but he's been fine. I would say Derek White's been slightly disappointing, but Joe Mazzulla's team blows a lead at home opening night. They get blown out in game 2. He's resting Josh Minot. They play the very big Detroit Pistons at home today, and he sits Xavier Tillman. So where are you at with Joe Mazzulla through 3 games?
He's not going to get fired. He's not going to get on the hot seat. The Celtics just signed into a multi-year contract extension in August, so I don't see him going anywhere, especially, it'd be a pretty bad look for the Celtics to fire Mazzulla after this year, considering that he was without his best player for most of, if not maybe all the season. So I think it'd be a terrible look for the Celtics if they decide to pull the plug on Mazzulla, especially after the success that he's had. And, granted, he had a big roster, but I do think this season, even though it may not end in Mazzulla getting fired or him getting on the hot seat in any capacity, I think it will start to raise questions about how good of a coach Mazzulla is. Is Mazzulla the guy, and this is what we talked about last week, it takes, I think, 2 different coaches, or definitely 2 different approaches to coach a title contender and a team that is searching for consistency and searching for its identity. This Celtics team is in the latter there. And Mazzulla, to me, Mazzulla has to figure out how he coaches this team versus how he did the previous 2 seasons. The previous 2 seasons is more about managing egos, managing things with the players on a personal level, and how to get the most out of them, because you know that those players were going to be good and the team was going to be successful. You obviously know with this team they're not going to be as successful as those other players, and you still have to motivate them to get the most out of them, but you also have to develop them. You have to develop the last 2 seasons. And I think maybe it goes back to your point with Baylor Shireman and Jordan Walsh and JD Davison, is that Missoula and his coaching staff, their focus wasn't on developing players, it was on trying to figure out how to get the most out of the players and the talented players that they had to win a championship. So I think this season could show the flaws of Missoula and how much better of a coach he could be. Like, maybe he's a coach who struggles to help players find their identity and develop them and get the most of them in that capacity. Maybe he's one of these guys who needs the players to already be basically a finished product, and he's just pushing them over the top. And just to kind of, go circle back to your point with Hugo Gonzalez starting tonight, I wouldn't be surprised if this was like another Joe Mazzulla like mind game with the team in a way, where he's like, hey, you know what? We're gonna put the rookie. I didn't play him opening night. I played him Friday night, and he did good in the end. We're gonna throw him in the starting lineup and just see what happens with this team and see how guys respond. I could totally see that happening. I wouldn't put it past him at all. I think Gonzalez played well on that. I think he looked good. I would like to see it again. Maybe tomorrow night when they play the Pelicans, we'll get another look at that. But I just kind of put a little thought in that. That would be something I would look back and say, maybe Missoula was just trying to see how his players would react to the rookie getting his start, his second career game.
Yeah, and I'm with you on Missoula. I don't think there's any chance he's fired this season. I think the conversation is even a little crazy, but it just feels like there is an anti-Missoula contingent among Celtics fans, but I'm nowhere near there. I think he is a very good coach, and I do think he'll adapt and things will get better. But that last point on Ugo, I kind of agree that I think Missoula will experiment this year, and I'm all for it. And I don't believe in the tank. I don't think this Celtics organization, new ownership, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Pritchard, I don't think they had any aspirations to tank this season, and I don't think they would actively tank. I just don't think that's in their DNA. But I do wonder if realizing, seeing this roster in action and how far away they are from the top of the East and, the top of the NBA, certainly, I wonder if we see a lot of experimenting with the younger guys. If you see Minot out there a lot, if you see Ugo out there a lot, if we do start to see, Jordan Walsh and Shireman occasionally, I haven't seen him all year. I barely saw him in the preseason. So very interested to see what happens with those guys. And Amari Williams, the kid they drafted, he's a big. I know he's far away from what I've read, from what I've heard, that he's, but why not at this point? He can't be any worse than some of the bigs on the roster. Like, I know it's only 3 games, but that's where I'm at, Jake. Throw them all out there. Let's see what they got. See if they can learn to swim. Like that's the only way they're going to get real experience. You can only leave them up in Maine for so long. So I'm with you on Missoula. I think he's been dealt a really tough hand this year, and that's probably a little over exaggerated. But I think if you want to get frustrated with anybody, it's the roster. Just in general, they don't have talent. And I'm still of the belief that this was a hard reset and they'll spend money next offseason. And if I'm wrong, then we have real problems. But I want to go back to opening night quickly because you were there. You were in the building, real big J journalist. That's why you're here. And I'm not joking about that. Jake is a real journalist. We don't have many of them at the Sports Hub, but Jake is one of them. So what was it like opening night? I think people did have high expectations. They did have the lead late in that game. What were your immediate takeaways, coming out of night one?
I would say pregame, it felt really just vibrant, joyous in a lot of ways. I remember Missoula did his pregame press conference, and then I went upstairs to level 9, and I was watching everyone come in, and it seemed like normal Celtics vibes. Everyone seemed happy. It seemed like it was opening night, a lot of good juju in the building, and then the way they came out and they looked good in the first quarter, it was like, okay, well maybe this team's going to surprise some people. Maybe they're not going to be as bad as people thought. And then the second quarter was kind of bumpy, and then when Derek White had that run in the third quarter, I remember I was sitting there, the crowd was into it, it was loud, and I remember thinking like, oh, this is the story. Like, they have the new team, but Derek White's here to save the day, and he's because he had the 3-pointer, and then he had I think an assist or steal at the other end, and then had another 3-pointer later on. And that was like the big thing that really catapulted the Celtics to a double-digit lead. And I was like, oh, this is the story. Everyone's happy. Like, this is the first time I remember I was listening to the game broadcast in the arena, and Grandy even said on the broadcast, like, oh, look at this. We didn't think it was going to happen, and it was not going to happen a lot, but Celtics are up by double digits right now, and they're starting to run away with it. And then the fourth quarter came, and they blew it. They got it back again, and they blew it. And then it was like a balloon deflating, where everyone, when the final buzzer sounded, like they just lost, and they blew a 9-point lead with 2 minutes to play. They couldn't close with the Sixers, who, by the way, Joel Embiid, they were missing. Like, that guy was a non-factor the entire night, and that to me was the biggest thing I can describe it as. Felt like it was so full of air and excitement, and then by the fourth quarter, when the final buzzer sounded, it was completely empty. People were leaving upset, and it was, kind of a sad environment at that point.
I'm glad you brought up Joel Embiid, because that might have been the worst part of the night, was that you couldn't even really focus on how bad Joel Embiid was because the Celtics blew it. Like, we probably would have done a lot of postgame on just how bad Embiid looked. And I almost feel bad for the guy at this point, because his career has just been derailed by, the Philly medical staff. If you read what's gone on down there, it's pretty insane. There was some report over the offseason that, when he first got hurt, when he was drafted, they put like an intern in charge of his recovery or something like that. It's just insanity what's happened to Joel Embiid down there. But I'm never going to feel bad for 76ers fans, but it's a horrible loss. And now, and this is probably a perfect way to cap off, I don't even think it's arguable at this point, the most negative Green Teamers podcast episode ever. I'm looking at their upcoming schedule, Jake, thinking of when we're going to record next, which will probably be next Sunday, I would imagine. Jake, they play the Pelicans tomorrow night, back-to-back. Do they win that game?
No. I
Okay.
don't think so. I mean, it's the second half of the back-to-back. Back-to-backs are tough in the league in general, and now you're going to fly all the way to New Orleans from Detroit. Out.
All right, so they are 0-4. Then Wednesday night, they return home, and they play the Cleveland Cavaliers. Jake, do they win that game?
Oh, that's so tough. The Cavs are rolling, man. That's a good team. I don't think they win that game.
No,
yeah.
they're 0-5. Okay, they're 0-5. I think.
Well, is Cleveland playing a back-to-back? Let me look. I'll look real quick. If Cleveland's on the second half of back-to-back, maybe they got a chance. Cleveland. No, they're ironically playing Detroit Monday, and then they're off to Boston on Wednesday.
So there you go. And they'll probably get there before the Celtics will. And then Friday.
Yeah, probably, actually.
Yeah, Friday. They're 0-5. They head down to Philadelphia to play the 76ers. Do they beat the 76ers to get revenge in their first win of the season?
If Joel Embiid is really that bad, I want to say I can't see a way that they would lose that. We just saw it opening night, though, so obviously there's a way for that to happen. I want to say that's the game they win against Philadelphia, and they're 1-5 to start the season. But man, like that's not a winnable game, I guess, like in the sense of that they're going to be favorites. Like, that's a very difficult game to come out on top in.
Yeah, and then they play another back-to-back. They fly home from Philadelphia to play the Rockets on Saturday.
That's just a brutal schedule by the NBA.
You're porked. You're porked.
Two back-to-backs in a week, on the road, back home.
At best, Jake, the next time we talk on the podcast, at best, we have the Boston Celtics at 1-6 to start the season.
That's bad.
I'll
be at that Saturday game.
You'll be there against the Rockets. Okay, good. We'll have boots on the ground. We'll get Jake. I'm sure you'll have a good piece on it. Check out all Jake's work on 985thesportshub.com. Fantastic writer. We're going to try and have boots on the ground as much as we can this year, which is a great asset to the station and of course the Green Teamers as well. So yes, not a lot of high notes on this episode, but I thought the only fitting way to go out would be, what's their record going to be the next time we do the podcast? I would love to say, they got 2 or 3 wins. Jake, we might be looking at 1-5, 1-6 the next time we get together.
Yeah, we could be. I think New Orleans, are they also on a back-to-back? I'm trying to pull it up right now. No, I don't think they are. Because I would have said if oh my God, no, they played Friday. Their next game is Monday. Wow, they got the whole weekend off. Yeah, they really could be 1-5, 1-6. Sorry, by the next time we have this podcast. That's terrible. That's really bad. That could go down as one of the worst starts of this century for the Celtics.
The Celtics upset somebody in the league office to get this schedule out of the gate. I don't know. I don't know who it was, but double back-to-backs, traveling for multiple back-to-backs as well. Down in Philly, back home against the Rockets. Like, oh boy. So yeah, it's going to be tough sledding for this Celtics team. We avoided tank talk tonight. I know the chat wanted DeBonsa. I've already seen Cam Boozer. We're going to start doing Cam Boozer talk in a couple weeks. Like that could be where we're headed. Jake, if they're 1-6 next weekend, we might have to give the people what they want. I'm trying to push off tanking talk as far as possible, but I'll end with some positives. I think they get at least one win in the next week. That's about as much as you're going to get out of me. I'm going to say they're going to get one win in the next week. That's my green teamer take of the week.
I will say this right now on Tankathon, they're tied for the best odds to get the first selection in the draft with Brooklyn. So yeah, it's not looking good. And if they go 1-6 when the next time we have this podcast, they might be in sole possession of that first seed. Again, I'm against tanking. I don't want to get into the tanking talk today, but one thing I will say, I guess semi-positive that you can say for the Celtics is I want to see Hugo Gonzalez more. Put him in the starting lineup tomorrow night. Let's see how he does against Zion and the Pelicans, and continue to do that. If he looks good, keep him in the starting lineup. I would actually like to see some development out of a rookie that we have not actually seen from the Celtics over the last few years because they've been in such a championship contender mode where it's always been get the most of the guys you have. If they can get some development out of their rookie class and actually see some promising signs from Hugo Gonzalez on a consistent level, I'd be all for that.
I'm with you. I think he's one of the few bright spots this year. And just to kind of add on to that, I'd like to see more Minot as well. I know he's raw, but he's big. He's athletic. He's long. He showed us some explosiveness in the preseason. Like, what do you have to lose at this point? I'd like to see more of him. So thank you, Jake, for letting me spiral for 35 minutes. I know I got us a little bit all over the place there in the middle, but yeah, that's what happens when your favorite basketball team is also spiraling. It could do things to you. So we'll see what happens over the next week. Jake may have just sent me into more of a spiral after I looked at the schedule and realized they may not win a basketball game the first 2 weeks of the season, but we're holding out hope. I think we come back here and they've won at least one. So the expectations are high. Jake, do you have anything you want to end the show on?
I was going to say just how everything has changed. A year ago, we would have been sitting here talking about the Celtics winning games and being a championship contender. And, no. October, doesn't matter. November, forget about it. The only thing that matters is winning playoff games in June of this franchise. And we're sitting here October 26, 2025 saying, yeah, maybe they'll win one game over the next week. This isn't football. You play multiple games a week.
Yeah, life comes at you fast, Jake. 1 year you're the champs, next year you're championship hopefuls, and then you're fighting for wins against the Pelicans. That's life in the NBA. You never know what's going to happen. So, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully, a little more cheery next week. We should have more to talk about. That is the thing, win or lose. This team is absolutely fascinating to me. I hope fans feel that way as well because I think it's a great study in Jaylen Brown and Derek White in how Joe Mazzulla coaches and also roster construction going forward. Like, I think as the season goes on, I hope this isn't what we come to realize a lot of. But the way the roster looks right now, like this could be a punt of a season wasted in Jaylen Brown and Derek White's prime. And I know Tatum being out has a lot to do with that, but that's a tough pill to swallow if you're a Celtics fan. So we'll see what happens over the next week. I'm holding out hope, but it's an uphill battle, Jake. It's an uphill battle. That's where we're at.
It's gonna be bad news bears. It feels like in some ways with where our discussion has gone with the Celtics so far.
I'm with you. All right. Well, thank you to everyone for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, as Jay Stu would say, hopefully there'll be some happy green teaming along the way. We'll see. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.